Alright guys, so today I have the KZ Vader Pro versus the KZ Caster Pro versus the CCA Trio. I know many of you are confused and you want to know which one is the best or which one you should get. Now, as such, there is no best. That will completely depend on the type of sound signature that you prefer and your budget. In general, all three of these are absolute champs in their own right, no doubt about that. But of course, there are differences in the way they render their sound signatures, and it's going to be based on that you'll either like it or you won't. So I'm going to try and be as objective as possible and give you the most neutral, unbiased opinion on how these sound so that you guys can make a purchase decision that is going to suit your ears. Now, just so you know, all these products and the audio accessories and every other thing that I'll be talking about in this video have been linked in the description below, and I would really appreciate if you use those links to make your purchase so that I can run this channel and produce more such high quality and helpful content just for you guys. Okay, let's begin. Alright, so who do we have here? This is the KZ Vader Pro, the tuning switch version with enhanced bass. Next up, we have the KZ Caster Pro. This also has tuning switches and it is the enhanced bass version. And we have the CCA Trio, and this just comes in one version with tuning switches. Okay, just so you know, I set the tuning switches on all three of these to the down position. So they weren't tweaked to make the bass better or the highs or mids. None of them were tweaked. All the four tuning switches were put to the down position. So that gave me the baseline sound signature that these in-ear monitors produce. So going forward, my breakdown of their sound is going to be based on that tuning position. Okay, starting off with the high frequencies of the treble response where the really sharp sounding instruments are. First, we have the Vader Pro. Now, this has more sparkle, better treble extension, and more emphasis on the ultra-high frequencies, which is great for those who want to analyze tracks and don't mind the extra sparkle in the ultra-high frequencies. Now, in comparison, the Caster Pro has smoother highs. There is sparkle but not as pronounced as with the Vader Pro. This is better for treble sensitive individuals, and the roll-off is smoother and makes it very good for laid-back listening. And finally, we have the CCA Trio, whose treble response is very similar to that of the Caster Pro, but the Caster Pro's highs just have more weight and sound a shade more rich. The ultra-high frequencies do pack enough sparkle to sound fun, but not overdone to sound harsh. These are also great for laid-back listening, so sort of like a tie between the Caster Pro and the Trio, whereas I just find that the Caster Pro's highs sound a bit more rich and weighty, but if you want the sharpest highs with the most sparkle and if you are kind of like a treble head, you should choose the Vader Pro. Alright, next up we have the mid frequencies where the vocals are. Okay, starting off with the Vader Pro, so the vocals sound brighter and there is an emphasis on the upper mids, might sound a bit shouty at higher volumes. Female vocals sound great though, and instruments sound extremely detailed and rich and have excellent separation. Next, we have the Caster Pro, whose vocals sound balanced and smooth, not too recessed nor too bright. The vocals maintain their natural tonality, which is always a very good sign, and instruments sound rich, detailed and authentic with good warmth. And finally, the CCA Trio, again very similar to the Caster Pro with a smooth and mostly neutral rendition of the mid frequencies, yet the Caster may just be a shade smoother. Now on the Trio, there is an ever so slight upper mid emphasis that makes vocals sound crisp, which some of you might really prefer. Instruments sound detailed and rich with adequate separation. So if you want the crispiest, sharpest vocals with a lot of detail, go for the Vader Pro. If you want something in between, you should go for the CCA Trio. And for the smoothest vocal rendition, where it's not too bright, not too recessed, but has some warmth to it, go for the Caster Pro. And finally, we get to the low end of the bass response. Now, the bass response on the Vader Pro is thick, punchy and powerful with a lot of mid-bass slam and plenty of sub-low rumble as well. It's enough for bass heads and complements a wide genre of music. Next up with the Caster Pro, again the bass response is very thick and has a meaty mid-bass slam and a deep sub-low rumble. It's well suited for a bass head and has a very smooth roll-off. Now, as for the CCA Trio, the lows pack a solid mid-bass slam and surprisingly consistent sub-low rumble. The texture is also good and suited for a wide genre of music. but overall the bass response is slightly more hefty on the Caster Pro in comparison. Now when it comes to the low end, I would say these are more or less tied, but the Vader Pro overall sounds maybe a bit more hefty, and especially that sub-low rumble is really nice. The Caster Pro has a very good quality bass, which is very smooth. The roll-off is very nice, and the Trio is absolutely no slouch because individually these are absolute champs with subtle differences here and there. Now obviously with the tuning switches that each of these have, you can tweak the bass even more by raising switch 1 and 1 and 2 together to get the best impact of the bass. So it's something you'll have to try out for yourselves and find the perfect sweet spot. Now when it comes to the soundstage, starting with the Vader Pro, the soundstage is moderately wide with great imaging. Next, with the Caster Pro, the soundstage is similar to the Vader, but imaging is better with instruments being more audible on busy tracks. And finally with the CCA Trio, the soundstage is almost identical to the Caster Pro, so very impressive imaging here as well. Okay, now let's talk about the comfort on each of these. Now individually, if you use these and if you haven't used the other, you wouldn't really know. But because I have all three and I've compared them side by side, these are the differences that really got highlighted. Okay, starting with the Vader Pro, what I found was that after comparing these three, the Vader Pro might have a ventilation issue because if you've checked the faceplate, it has no air vents that usually help with the soundstage as well as easing the pressure on the ears. So that is something I found that with extended listening sessions, depending on your ear and the ergonomics, you might have some ventilation issue where you might just feel like you have to take it off to give your ears a breather. So that's something that got highlighted. Now, comparing this to the Caster Pro, I've always found these to be very comfortable with great ergonomics and fit even for my small ears. Now, this will vary from one person to another, but very rarely have people had issues with the Caster Pro. And with the CCA Trio, same as the Caster Pro, the CCA Trio is lightweight and very comfortable, and there was no ear fatigue or issues with fit or ventilation. So I think the glaring issue with the Vader Pro is that it has no air vents anywhere on the faceplate or on the sides compared to the Caster Pro and the CCA Trio that have evidently better ventilation. So that is something you might consider. Now, regardless of which in-ear monitor that you pick, because of the really poor quality of the inbuilt DACs in our smartphones, they end up sounding low in volume or the bass is weak, and overall you get an inferior audio quality. So to mitigate that, all you need is a portable DAC. Nothing too fancy or expensive, but just something that can make sure that your in-ear monitors can perform to their full potential without leaving any quality or volume in the tank. And what you get is just the best audio quality possible, which is exactly what you paid for. So make sure to check out the one that I personally use, which is this one right here, from the link in the description below. Alright, so now let's summarize. Starting with the Vader Pro. Now for those who are treble heads, enjoy extra sparkle, and want to analyze tracks while also craving a hefty bass response, the Vader Pro is the one to go for. As for the Caster Pro, it is the smoothest of the lot, ideal for those who want a balance of all three frequencies without compromising on any. Perfect blend of detail and hefty bass. Now as for the CCA Trio, it's very similar to the Caster Pro with extra sparkle in the treble response, not excessive as the Vader Pro, but it's great for those who want an emphasis on the vocals a bit, and of course the bass response is great with ample heft. Now the great part about three of these is that all of these have tuning switches, so yes, you can tweak the bass to a certain degree and the mid and high frequencies. So these are the baseline sound signatures that I spoke about with all the 4 tuning switches turned down. Now, depending on what type of sound signature you prefer, where you want the emphasis to be, you can tweak the tuning switches accordingly and get that sound.